Hey, what's up everyone? This is Ernesto from the Moose House Studio here in Baltimore. So, I get asked a lot, how much do you charge for your mixes? Short answer, we have 3 mix options for you here at the studio to kind of fit different price points, but also to kind of fit different approaches because not every song is going to require the same approach. So, I'm making this video so that you can kind of hear the difference between those options and make the best decision for your music.
You won't see me hanging round.
Alright, so I like to pull up a song that we recently finished for a group called the Dirty Grass Players, a fantastic bluegrass group that I work with here from Baltimore. And they have a new project called Beneath the Woodpile. This is their first single called Ramblin' on My Mind. And to start with, I want to play the original tracks that we recorded to kind of show you the quality of the recording before anything was any processing was done to it, and so you can kind of get a better idea of what we had to start with. So let me pull that up for you right now. All right, so these are the tracks here. You see, I have a few different takes. And what we ended up going, we picked the best take pretty much, and then we record the vocals on top of that. I have some different lead vocals on different tracks, just so I can process them different. And you see that they're pretty comped, you know. So I'll go in there through the playlist and comp the best vocals. We don't get too crazy on the comps on the hooks because we want it to sound pretty natural. But on the verses, we hone in on that a little bit, but for the most part everything is played straight through. I have 2 mics on the upright bass, I have 2 mics on the acoustic guitar, everything else is 1 mic. Then I have a couple rooms to pick up some ambience. Later on through the project I ended up putting 2 mics on just about everything just to have options, but I try to keep it straightforward at first to see kind of what we could capture. So if you want to, let's take a listen to this. These are just the raw tracks with no plugins on it. Let me take these plugins off here. I use an auto align plugin on stuff that has 2 mics sometimes to line them up by the sample to where there's not any weird phase issues. Yep, so let's take a listen to this.
The day that I say sorry is the day that I sprout wings and fly from this lonely little
Looks like I have a little automation going on there.
And if you think that I'm the one who's packing up to leave, you can bet your ass that I won't stick around.
And some, basic leveling. Yeah, so I have some automation going on there, but there's no EQ or compression or anything like that on there. So, alright, that gives you a good example of the sound of the recorded tracks.
Now all is said and done, you won't see me hanging around.
Alright, so as you can hear, it sounded pretty good. The signals are strong signals. The performance was good. Those are the 2 main elements that you'll need to make a good mix. Going forward, what we're going to start doing is putting processing on there within the computer, hone it in a little bit, maybe adding a little bit of reverb or space to things. So the next example I'm going to show is a digital mix. Now, if I were to do this option number 1 mix for somebody, as a final product, if that's the one that you choose, then I'll probably take it a little bit further to make it sound a little bit more final. With this particular example, I knew we were going to pull it up on the console, so I left it a little bit looser than I might otherwise. But let's take a listen to that, and you can hear how it's starting to sound even better.
The day that I say sorry is the day that I sprout wings and fly from this lonely little town. And if you think that I'm the one who's packing up to leave, you can bet your ass that I won't stick around.
Alright, so as you can hear, it's a little more refined. I've got some EQ and compression going with various plugins. A couple per channel. On some things on like the rooms and stuff like that, I don't get crazy. and then I'll bus certain things out to different buses and process them a little bit. Now, when I take this to the studio, if I were doing a console mix, a lot of times I end up taking some of this EQ and compression off and doing that in the analog domain if I think that will benefit it. Also, if I'm doing a digital mix for somebody, I'll print a couple things too. So right now you see this channel that's called Bass Sum EQ. That's the DI and the microphone summed together, sent out of my converters in through a diode bridge compressor and a 1073 style EQ, and I kind of just commit to the bass sound and print it, and kind of build the mix around that a lot of times, especially on something like this where you know, the bass really provides the bottom for the whole song. I kind of like to just kind of make my mind up and commit. Also on this one, if you notice, there are 3 stereo channels that are called plates. I don't have any digital reverb on this project. I ended up choosing to send it out to my buddy in Austin, Nick Joswick, who works at a studio called Fifth Street Studios. I used to work out down in Austin, and they have an EMI plate or EMT plate reverb, which is really nice. I think it's a 140, and it just, to me, sounds more organic, more natural, or whatever. So I had him print the instruments, the lead vocal, and the hooks separately with kind of different times and stuff like that. So it ended up sounding really good, but you'll hear that in this mix.
All right, so as you can hear, you know, it's starting to sound a little bit more refined, a little bit more honed. What I want to play next is going to be option number 2. Now, the option number 2 is going to be a good option for a lot of people because it's a good middle ground price point wise, and it's also a good middle ground sonically, because what you're doing is you're taking the digital mix, but you're applying analog processing to the stereo master. So it's going out of the computer into the Neve Master Bus processor, into the Bettermaker EQ, analog EQ, and you know, it's a good way of getting that kind of analog flavor, but at a lower price point and more efficiently. So let's take a listen to option number 2.
The day that I say sorry is the day that I sprout wings and fly from this lonely little town. And if you think that I'm the one who's packing up to leave, you can bet your ass that I won't stick around. You thought I was your little toy.
All right, so as you can hear, you know, you're getting that nice Neve flavor on the mix bus. It sounds more analog, sounds more professional, and you're at only $50 more for mix option number 2. So again, that's going to be a good one for people. A lot of projects that I do, I end up doing that because the trade-off for price point for the analog console mix versus that one is just not worth it. And it kind of depends on the music too. Sometimes the console mix really helps certain songs, sometimes it doesn't. All right, so now we're ready for the console mix. Now, the console mix is going to be for those that really want to take it as far as it possibly can go. It may not be the best for every project. I would give you my honest opinion as to whether the console is really going to enhance your project or not. The advantage typically for a console mix is that, you know, you get more dimension. So your front to back space is enhanced, your width is enhanced. Everything kind of retains its dynamics better, while also in an odd way kind of tightening up and gelling a little bit. So this is the most expensive option, and for a reason. You know, when you're doing an analog console mix, what you're doing is you're pulling everything up and everything's getting played individually through channel strips on the console. If you want to change down the road, you have to pull every one of these knobs back up how you had it. So you know, to make things more efficient here in the studio, if I were to pull up a revision, what I end up doing is I put everything at unity gain So I send a sine wave out to the console, put all the faders at 0, and essentially all my level control is done inside of the computer still. So it's a matter of somebody wanting like a vocal up mix or a vocal down mix or something like that. That's easy to achieve. Also, when I pull it up, it sounds exactly the way it did before. Another advantage to the analog console mix is that if there was something I wasn't happy with on an individual channel, what I can do is insert some of our analog gear on that individual channel. So, for example, on this particular song, I believe we took the lead vocals and went to a vintage Neumann line amp with some cool, I think, Hoff transformers in it. And then also to the Chandler RS-124. And so it just kind of gives it a little bit more character. So we're going to listen to that. This is the analog console mix. Also ran 2/4 inch at 15 IPS on the Sony deck.
The day that I say sorry is the day that I sprout wings and fly from this lonely little town. And if you think that I'm the one who's packing up to leave, you can bet your ass that I won't stick around. You thought I was your little toy, you thought this was a game, and now you sit there spouting out how I'm the one to blame. You can close the door and change the lock, do anything you please. I'm hopping on the first train leaving town.
All right, so those are the 3 mix options here at the Moose House Studio. I hope that helps you out, kind of better decide what might be a good option for your music. Don't hesitate to send us an email or visit us at themoosehousestudio.net. You can fill out a form on the mix page and let us know a little bit more about your music. I'm going to leave you with the song after it's been mastered. So this is after I've sent it off to somebody else to do the final mastering. In this particular project, we sent it off to Matt over at Mobtown Studio. He did a really good job of adding a little vintage EQ and getting it to sound nice and vibey. So this is the final of Ramblin' on My Mind by The Dirty Grass Players on their brand new album, Beneath the Woodpile.
The day that I say sorry is the day that I sprout wings and fly from this lonely little town. And if you think that I'm the one who's packing up to leave, you can bet your ass that I won't stick around. You thought I was your little toy, you thought this was a game, and now you sit there spouting out how I'm the one to blame. You can close the door and change the lock, do anything you please. I'm hopping on the first train leaving town. Now all is said and done, you won't see